Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome back. We would like to welcome you back to the next installment of the Coptic class. We have with us, as always, Dr. Joseph Sidrak, and he will continue with Coptic grammar review and translation. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Sidrak to get us started with prayer. Whenever you're ready, Dr. Joe.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start with a prayer, everybody. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever, amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Well, welcome back, everybody, and I apologize again for last time. I had to cancel the lecture because I was getting actually I was getting a cold at that point. But thank God I'm feeling better now. So hopefully we'll get back to it. But again, I apologize about the last time I could barely talk. So, but anyway, so today I think mostly what we're gonna do is we're gonna review the homework assignment that everybody should have turned in by now, and we'll go over the answers and or some examples of some good answer or possible answers, and and we can do a little bit of. My goal is to spend most of the time today just going through and translating the Bible texts, because now that we've moved through a lot of the grammar, we're going to start to actually see a lot of it, and we can actually translate most of the things that we're coming across in reading. So we've really made a lot of good progress. We still got quite a bit to go. Don't get me wrong. We're not out of the woods yet, so to speak, but we've definitely made a lot of progress. So hopefully you'll start to see the, the fruits of the labor starting to show forth. So, but anyway, let me get the homework here opened up, and then I'm gonna switch over to the screen here in a second. So you should be able to see my screen here. If you're not seeing it, please go ahead and interrupt. But last time we went through the relative pronouns, and just as kind of a quick review, it's basically this combination of the further demonstrative that we call it with the relative marker. And the further demonstrative, remember we talked about how the further demonstrative, there's the masculine, feminine, and plural. And basically, it doesn't, we'll talk about it more, but it doesn't really say like he who did something or she who did something. It's really more specifically like that who did something, but the that in this case that's highlighted would be masculine, and the that in this case would be feminine, and the those in this case would be again just plural. So those who did blah blah blah. So we'll go through some examples once we see the readings, and then this is just the relative standing alone. Ente means of, and theou, the glory. So we studied all these things last time. And I believe we went through these, if I remember correctly, last time. So just briefly, phi et hemsi, hijen bithronos ente pithou, that who sits upon the throne of his glory. So we went through these translations last time. The demonstrative pronouns is basically it's the same thing, fiat, niet, but we've added this mav. So what that means is that who is there, or like here, that which is there. So you'd say like piromi, fiete, and mav. So the man who is over there, and then you would go on with your statement, for example. And we'll see some examples of this because it's pretty common. So yeah, so here we've got these examples. Piromi fiete emav, that man. Tiasimi fiete emav. So it means the woman, that which is there. Or in other words, that woman. So that's kind of what we studied last lesson. And then let's see. And then we'll go into the homework over here. So remember last time we had the three irregular verbs, ta'un, which means to stand up or rise, kot, which means to turn or return, and ohirat, to remain on foot or basically to stand up. And then we had this homework assignment that that hopefully was not too difficult, but basically we're supposed to translate and then answer the following questions, okay? So let's see, I've got it, most of it pasted over here. So it's weird because when I copy and paste the fonts, these Jinkims show up as this dot on the bottom, so you can ignore these dots. They're supposed to be like a Jinkim over here. So let's go to number one. It's because they're different fonts, so that's the way it shows up. Okay. So number one, mi afkot enje pekiot evolchen rakoti. So we're supposed to translate and then answer the question. So how are we going to translate it? Remember, mi. Just think of it as a Greek particle that indicates an interrogative statement or a question. So mi, think of it as basically it's a question mark. It's not really translated, but we know that this is a question. And remember, we talked about last semester. I always belabor the point. I say I probably shouldn't keep belaboring it, but in general, in the real Coptic grammar, it's only used for rhetorical questions, but sometimes in some of these basic Coptic grammar books, they use it in any question. But just know in the Bible and manuscripts, etc., you're really 99% of the time only going to see me indicating a rhetorical question, whereas regular questions have a different format. But for simplicity's sake, they use this. Okay, so we've got this irregular verb here, afkot. So what does that mean? So we have our simple past tense, correct? It's a third person singular masculine, af. And then this fi, remember, has to correspond to this fi, because this is a reflexive verb, meaning this tense has to correspond with this, afkot. And kot means to return or turn back or to come back. So mi afkot. So did he return? Enje, namely. Pikiot, remember pik is the possessive adjective. Your father. So did he return? Namely your father. Evol chen. Evol means from. And chen is in. So from in. Rakoti. Rakoti, remember, is the name of Alexandria before the conquest of Alexander the Great, when they renamed it to Alexandria, or changed the name to Alexandria. So did he return, namely your father, from Alexandria? And so you can answer it in a simple way. There's a affirmative or a negative. You can say akot enje, but you're going to say pikiot. You're going to say like pa, right? Because you're going to say my father. If someone's asking you, did your father return? You're going to say, yes, my father returned. So, se avkot enje payot evol chen rakoti. So it's pretty simple. Or you can say emon empefkot. So there's several ways to negate it. You can say emon empefkot, etc. Or you could say emon afkot on. There's several ways to say he didn't return. And these are all completely valid ways. Or you can say, remember, sometimes instead of just saying afkot on, you can do the in on. So this is not necessary, but you can say, or no, I'll just leave it at that. So afkot on, okay? So number 2, ni nafhemsi immabat insaf. So ni nafhemsi immabat insaf. So nafhemsi, remember what kind of past tense is it? It's the past continuous, right? So would you say he sat, or would you say he was sitting? It's the past continuous, so you'd say he was sitting. So, and it's a question, so you're actually going to say it in the question format. So, was he sitting? Immavat. What does immavat mean? Remember, it's the preposition. But remember, the prepositions in Coptic, they get conjugated. So, this tense is going to correspond with this tense. So, you would say nafhemsi immavati. You wouldn't say that because that's two totally different people. They don't correspond with each other. They have to correspond. So was he sitting? Immavat means alone or by himself. Because remember, the root of this, ava, it comes from away, the number, not one, away. So that's where this root comes from. So that's why I know this is alone or by himself or one. So was he sitting by himself in Saf yesterday? So you can say yes or no. You can say se, MC, Imavat, Insaf, Insaf, or Emon, MC, on, Imavat. Or you can say Nafhamsi Imavat on. So you can put the on here, or you can put it here. Either. This is probably better to put in the second position. It makes a little bit more sense grammatically. Okay. Next one. Me. Again, a question. Me. Titin uush. Ishlil. Neman. Khan. Ti Ecclesia. And Ti Parthenos. Okay. So me, it's a question. Titin uush. Remember uush, I try to make it easy to remember. So uush is like to wish or to want. Uush, I think it sounds like wish. So titin is which tense is it? It's the present tense. So do you wish? You plural, because it's the second person plural. So do you plural wish? Ishlil. Everybody knows ishlil because the one that says ishlil means pray. So do you wish to pray? Niman. Remember that's the preposition with, and it's conjugated into the third person, the first person plural. So do you wish to pray with us? Khen, we just talked about in. Ti Ecclesia is the church, and Ti Parthenos of the Virgin. So they said, do you wish to pray with us in the Church of the Virgin? So again, the answer, it's simple. You can say, se, I, wush, shli. Would you say neman? Because it said with us, but now you're going to say with you plural. Instead of with us plural, you say with you plural. So how do you say neman? You would say nemoten. Everything else is unchanged. So like that. Nemoten. So you'd say se, ti wish shlin nemoten, chen ti ekseyen ti parthenos. Or you could say emon, en ti uosh on etc. So that would be the way to negate it if you answered it no, or the negative. Okay. Next question. Mi sena ta'unu enje niraf ma'ut. Let's see. Somehow I deleted the rest of the questions anyway. Okay. Mi sena ta'unu enje niraf ma'ut. So let's translate it. Ta'unu, remember? It's from the irregular verb ta'un, which means to rise or to get up. And this is which tense is this? Think about it. This is the future tense, right? Se na, because it has na. Third person plural. So mi, question mark. Will they rise? Namely, ni refma'ut. Refma'ut means those ones who are dead. So will the dead rise? So you can say se ni refma'ut se na ta'unu. Or you can say se na ta'unu Jenny ref mode. So you can kind of tweak it a little bit, but as long as it still makes grammatical sense, etc. So that's pretty easy. And again, we don't have to go into the negative of this, but let's say theoretically, if we're going to say no, we'd say emon insenata unuan or something like that. But let me see. So for some reason, the rest of this didn't get pasted here. So let me just. Oops. So the next question, nimpe etafchi impet gom evol intot. Okay, so the easiest way is to break it up into parts. So nimpe. So remember, nim means who. So who is. So you can say who is it. Remember, pe is like is. So who is it? So I'm just going to type it here. So who is, there's really no it, like say who is it that did blah blah blah, but there's no it, so we're just gonna put it in parentheses here, but just so we can understand what we're trying to say. So who is which afachi means he took. So who is it which he took? Impik gom. Remember, that's the possessive adjective again with gom is the word for book. Who is it which he took your book? Evol entot. From entot is your hand, or from you. Your book from you. Okay? So, that sentence is very choppy, but, it's very specific there so you can understand it. But if you're really going to translate it, you're going to say, so who took your book from you? Or who is it that took your book from you? Okay? I kind of like to just go through it and translate in a very literal sense, and then once you have that basic skeleton in the literal sense, you can go through and make it something that actually makes sense in English. Yeah. So if you're going to answer the question, you can say, anybody can say, like my daughter, for example. You can say, I'm going to say my daughter. Ta, Sherry, Asachi, Im. Remember before saying pick gom, but now we're talking about my book. So, Pa, Gom, Evol, and Tot. Because remember, these are those prepositions that we went through. So instead of in tot, because it's from you, we're going to say evol in tot, which means from me, my book from me. So my daughter, she took my book from me. So you can change it. You can say anybody's name. You can say, like my name is Joseph, so I'm going to say Yusuf. She, I didn't take my book for myself, but I'm just going to use my name as an example. Apache, M, Pa, Goam, Evol, and Tot. Whatever here. Okay, so that's how you would answer that question, for example. And again, you can any play off that as long as it makes sense grammatically. Okay. In ifnav, iknakot, ipiki. In ifnav, iknakot, ipiki. So ifnav means the time. So this is basically saying at what time or when is the best way. When iknakot, kot, remember we just went through kot. When will you return? Because remember this is the future tense. When will you return to your home? So that's how you're going to answer it. When will you return to your home? Sorry, change it back to English here. When will you return to your home? So you're going to answer the question. They're talking to you, so you're going to say I, T, Na, Kot. Remember, we've got this double imaginary T that can be assimilated or not assimilated, but I'll just put in parentheses. T, Na, Kot, E, Pa, E. You can say anything. In Rasi, tomorrow. I will return to my home tomorrow, or I will return to my home tonight. You can say MP, Egor. That means I'll return home tonight. Or, if you want to be more specific, you can say Tina Kot Fai NT Egb Soup. The Egb Soup. So that means I will return to my home at 6 o'clock. Or you can, so you can change that and make it fit whatever you want for your example. Okay, number 7. Sha'athnav ikna ohi irak ilnai. Sha'athnav ikna ohi irak ilnai. So Sha means until. When. So until when. So for how long is you can say for until when or for how long. Ikna ohi irak. You will remain on foot, or you will stand up, or remain here. Okay? So that's how you would translate it. So until when, so just do the literal. Sorry. It's hard to go back from font to font, sorry. Until when, ikna ohi irak, you will remain on foot. Not here. So that's the kind of a literal translation. So basically what it means is, how long will you be here? Or how long will you stay here? So that's if you're trying to translate into something that makes sense, that's how you would translate it. So, very similar to the previous one, you could say T. I'm going to change it back again. Sorry. T na ohi erat im paima, or M9. M9 means here, so M means in this place. So, ohirat M9 and u susu. I don't think we took susu. And uut. So I'm just gonna stay here for. I will remain here in ususu. Susu means like a second. In ususu and uut, or just for like a minute. So it means it's just a very short, quick time. So I'm just going to be here for a short time, or you can say in unu. That means I'll be here for an hour. Unu. U means this indefinite article singular, so u, and then unu. Like when it says tai unu tai to this hour. Unu is hour. So I will be here for an hour. Or tina ohi erat emnai in shomt in unu. In shomt. Or you can put the number 3. Just imagine, instead of writing shomt, you can put the number 3. This should have a line on top, but I have to play with the font to figure out where it is. So in shomt in unu, or whatever you want to say. So I will remain here for 3 hours, or I'll be here for 3 hours. So there's different ways to play with these sentences. Efa'u ekmoshi mavak. Efa'u ekmoshi mavak. So FO means why, or this literally means like concerning what or for what. So concerning what or for what. For what? Ikmoshi, it's a simple present tense, but remember instead of the kappa, we've got the key because of the whole process of assimilation, because this is the moshi, starts with one of the bil manur letters. Or the may, so I can say the key instead of the kappa. So, for what you walk in Mavat, we just did that. For what you walk alone, or why are you walk, or why do you walk alone, or why are you walking alone? Okay. Why are you walking alone? So, I mean, again, there's, you can come up with some kind of answer. You can say, like, T, U, Osh, E, Boshi. Like, I wish to walk in Kolen. In Kolen. That means because I wish to walk fast. So why are you walking alone? Because I wish to walk fast. Or you can say so you probably should say because, this I can say because. So you can say that here too, actually, it would make more sense. We didn't really get into this, but it's going to make more sense. Means like because. So because. So why are you walking alone? Because I walk, or I want to walk fast. Or you can say because T na quote epai. So we're just going to use one of the sentences we took before. Tina quote epai, because I'm going to go home. That's why I'm walking alone, because I'm going to go home. So these are different ways you can make these sentences. And then that's it for the question or the homeworks from before. So if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to send them in. But otherwise, we're not going to really jump into a new lesson today, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do our normal translations that we typically like to do here. So we're going to make it a little bit bigger. Too big. Okay. So let's start with this reading. So today is the 23rd of Beba. So Beba 23. So this reading, you can see it's on all a multitude of different days from the daily Tetameros, but today, November 3rd, is the 23rd of Beba. So it's actually evening raising of incense would theoretically be read last night in the church service in Ashayim in Vespers. So let's begin. Psalmos to David, Alleluia. I, Chisi, en usot, evolchen palaos. I Jimmy en David pavok. I Thahsef en oneh f Tajig Rar S.A. T-Tots Na. Okay. So let's translate this here piece by piece. So I'll put this here so we can compare. I, Chisi. Chisi means to raise something up, or in other words, when you raise something up in this kind of biblical or spiritual sense, when you raise it up, you're exalting it. So that's why when we say Chisi Emo, we exalt you, the mother of a true light. It's in the, you know, it means we raise you up, the mother of the true light, but we kind of translate it as we exalt you, the mother of the true light, because we're raising her up or exalting her. So in the same sense, we say I raised, because again, it's the past tense, simple past tense, I chisi, I raised or I exalted, and usot. So what did I exalt? So what's the direct object here? Usot. So u is the indefinite singular article. Sot means to choose when it's used as a verb. So, but we're not using it as a verb here. Like for example, if you're prefixing it with one of these tenses, you can say I sot MP Romi. So that means I selected or I chose the man. But here, we know sot means to choose. So when we're using it as a noun instead of a verb, instead of I'm stuck with certain over here. Sorry. So instead of using it as a verb, we're going to be using it as a noun with an indefinite article. So instead of I chose, but it's going to be a chosen. A chosen. Okay. So I exalted a chosen. So we see here, I have exalted a chosen one. So I exalted a chosen. Evol Khan, we talked about Evol Khan a lot, from in Palaos. So from in or among Pa Laos. So Pa is a possessive adjective, and Laos means my people or nation. So I exalted a chosen from in my people. I Jimmy means to find. So I Jimmy, I found David, it's the name David. Pavok, my servant. So I found David, my servant. I Thahsif, Thas comes from the verb thos. Thos. Thos means to anoint or to smear something, so it means to anoint. So when we conjugate it, again, this is not a reflexive verb. So what we see here is the past tense, I Thas comes from thos. This is the, we'll get into this later, but it's the pre-pronominal form of thos. So I thahsif. So I anointed him. So I anointed him. See here. So this is different than the reflexive verb that we've been talking about before. So I anointed him with what? In onih f-o-web. So with, there's really no with, but then we have this linking particle. So I anointed him with, or again with this linking particle. Unih, neh means oil. Neh. Unih means an oil, or just oil. So I anointed him with an oil, he being holy. So holy oil. Because this if is this he being holy, this he is the oil, because there's no like it in Coptic like we talked about before. Everything is either a he or a she or a they. There's no such thing as an it. So that's how you say holy oil. You say onih f-o-e. Okay. Tajig. Jig means hand. And then ghar and de and these Greek particles, they usually go in the second position of the sentence, but when we translate them in English, they go first. So you'd say, for my hand, tajig ghar es'e titot sana. Titot, like in the Thanksgiving prayer, what is the titotin of intin sha'ahriyatai unuthai? So titot, so it means give. So my hand, for my hand shall give herself to him. So that basically means that my hand shall provide for him, or in this translation they've said my hand shall strengthen him, but it's really more like to provide for him. For my hand shall provide for him. So es'e titot sana. Again, this is the direct object. This is what's receiving the function of the verb. Okay. So let's go to the gospel reading. Someone reading from the gospel according to St. Matthew, and his blessings be with us all. Amen. Impermevi je etai ehioi en ohirini ijen pikahi. Netai ehioi en ohirini an. Allah osifi. Ai rar eferg oromi epifiot. O oshiri etismar. O oshelet etishomi. O ningaji empiromi ne nefremen في اثمي امبثيوت تفماف اهوتيروي اف امبشا اموي ان او في اثمي امبفشيري يتفشاري اهوتيروي اف امبشا اموي ان في اته انف ناولين بفستافروس ان او انت فموشين صوي اف امبشا اموي ان في اتف جيمي انت فبسيكي اف اتاكوس في اتنطاكو انت فبسيكي افيت اف اجامس في اتشوب اموتين افشوب اموي او في اتشوب اموي افشوب ام في اتاف تاوي في اتشوب ان او بروفيتيس افران ان او بروفيتيس افتشي ام افباكا ان او بروفيتيس في اتشوب ان او اثمي افران ان او اثمي افتشي ام افباكا ان او اثمي او في اثنا اتسي او واي ان نايكوشي ان او افوت اما او هوج you can imagine this in Coptic اما او هوج مونون افران ان او ماثيتيس امين تيجون بوثوتين جي ان فتاكو ان جي بفاكا في او فاكا نوتي بي شاينين تنينة تيرو امين. So let's go back to the beginning. So impair, I can't remember if we studied impair, but when we have the imperative, we could say like mivify. Let's say that would be the think of this. So mivify, or that would be like think of this thing, or think about it. Or you can say that don't think about it in an imperative way. You prefix it with imper. Imper means like do not think of this. So that's how you say the negative of the imperative. So don't think. Okay, so over here, impermevi. So don't think, je, that. So don't think what? Je. This is the opening of the quotations of saying don't think, quotations, what's following. So this je is like the quotations. So don't think, quotations. Itai, remember we talked about the relative when it's by itself. That I came, i.e., remember e means to come. So that I came. He owi means, it can mean different things. It can mean to hit, or it can mean to throw or cast. So let's see. So here it's being translated as like to send. So it's like throw or cast. So do not think that I have come, or I came, to throw or cast hirini. Everyone knows hirini, peace. Hijen means upon. Pikahi, the earth. So don't think that I came to send peace or cast peace or throw peace upon the earth. We're going to negate it, remember? So we've got the N on. N on. So nitai ehi owi and ohirini on. So I did not come to throw peace. Allah means but in the Greek particle for but. So I did not come to throw peace, but usifi, a sword. So it means I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Or I came not to send peace, but a sword. I.e. ghar, for I have come. Ghar, remember it's in the second position here, but for I have come. For I have come. Ferg means to separate. Uromi, epifiot, a man. And, e means like to, or in this sense it means against. So I have come to separate a man from his father. Uwo, usheri, it's a small. Usheri means daughter. So, and a daughter from her mother. Owo ushelet, it is Shomi. And a bride from her. Shomi means mother-in-law. So here it says daughter, but here it actually says bride. Ushelet, or a daughter-in-law. Yeah. So a daughter-in-law. So yeah, that's the bride. So the daughter-in-law or the bride from her mother-in-law. Okay. Owo ningaji empiromi. So does this mean our enemies? No, it's actually, remember there's this usage of the definite article. It can be either ni or nen, like in Njig and Aron, and I showed that's the famous example. Owo ningaji empiromi ne nefremen I. So the enemies, ningaji, means the enemies, not our enemies, but the enemies. Empiromi, of the man, or of a man. Ne, are. So remember, pete ne means are, is or are. So the enemies of a man are nif, rem, and e. So you'll see rem as a prefix quite a bit. So let me just explain what that means here, because you'll see it. So rem is a prefix that comes from romi. So you can see how that comes from that. So the best way to think of it as so rem and e means man of house. man of house, or basically someone in your house, or a member of your house, or a family member. Okay, so that's what rem and e means. So there's different things we can say, like I'm just going to think of some other occurrences of, say, rem mvaki. Mvaki means a big city, so this would be a citizen of the city. Or you can say the rem in Kimi. I hope everybody knows what this means. Kimi means Egypt, so a man of Egypt or an Egyptian. And again, I say man, it's like person, so it doesn't really mean masculine or feminine. It's just a person. So you can say T Eshini and Remenkini, or T Eshini. Piromi can mean a male, or it can just mean man in general. But if you wanted to be specific and say it's a male, you'd say P Hout. Hout is how you say, like, actually the opposite of a T, of something that's a female, it would be male, P Hout. So, but in general, Romi can mean a man, a male, or it can mean man in the general sense as well. So when we're using this as a prefix, it's more in the general sense. So this would be an Egyptian, a member of the city, or like a student. We used this example, I think, before, or Urim Ansib. Ansib means school. So this is Urim Ansib would mean the student or the member of the school. So that's what Rem and E means, is the member of the house or the family member. So, and the enemy of a person, or the enemies of a person, are his Rem and E, or his own house. So here we see, and the man's enemies shall be his own household. Okay. Now here's some good examples of these what we've been studying. I'm blanking out on the terminology right now, but the further demonstrative with the relative here. So fi ethmaid and pafiot. So remember, in Coptic, this fi, we don't know if it's like he or you, masculine, because it's just masculine. They don't differentiate in Coptic. But we know that it's he over here because this is his over here. So you can't say you who love his father. No, you'd say he who loves his father. So that's how you know that this should be a he, even though in Coptic it doesn't say he. It says just the masculine that, the further demonstrative. So that over there who loves his father, or in other words, he who loves his father, because again, this is he because this is his. So he, ethne, may means to love. He who loves his father, ye tifmav, or ye means or. And it's like in Arabic we say di, yadi, right? We say this or that, or this or this. So yeah, some people believe it comes from Coptic, but yeah means or. So he who loves his father or his mother, ehoteroi, I don't think we took that, but that means more than me. If emipsha means worthy, and this is the present tense. So he is worthy of me not. So he's not worthy of me. So he who loves his father or his mother more than me is not worthy of me. Owo fi ethmei, and he who loves Mbashiri. Bashiri means son, his son. So he who loves his son, Yetifshari, or his daughter, Ehoteroi, more than me, if Emipsha Moyan, he's not worthy of me. Okay, so that one was pretty easy there. Fi ete, remember we took this variant of the demonstrative pronouns last lesson. So fi ete, and then we've got the in on. So we got to break it up into pieces. In, on. Okay, so let's look at the root of it. If not oli. Oli means to lift or carry. If not oli. So now we broke it up into pieces. Let's go look at it. So fi ete. So that who and if naoli, will not, because remember there's a future tense, if not. So that who will not carry Epiphistavros, his cross. So he who will not carry his cross. Owo and Tifmoshi and soy, and we haven't taken this, but this is the conjunctive. But basically, when you have the conjunctive, it's just a sort of a continuation way of. It's basically like saying the same thing that the previous tense in the sentence says without saying the same thing. Does that make sense? So he who will not carry his cross and follow me, Moshi and Soy. Remember, we talked about Moshi and Soy. Walk behind me means to follow me. If Emipsha and Moyan is not worthy of me. Okay, we took if Emipsha. We took it. Sorry. So he who does not carry his cross and walk behind me or follow me is not worthy of me. Fi, so that again is that again. So he etaf jimi. So he who afajimi. So afajimi, remember, means found, or the past tense, he found. So that which he found his soul. So that which, sorry, this keeps jumping, the cursor keeps jumping. That which he found in Tifipsiki, his soul. So that means he who found his soul. If itakos, we haven't taken this third future tense, but again, that's the one we talked about. That's like the definite. They call it a third future, or something that's definitely going to happen, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So he who found his soul, he will destroy it, or it will be destroyed or lost. So tako means to destroy or bring to desolation. But here I think they probably just translated as duza, but yeah. But takom is it really means to destroy it. So he who finds his soul, he shall destroy it. But it doesn't say but here say he who will destroy his soul or lose his soul. So he who will destroy his soul, fi'eth na tako, because this is the future tense now. So he who will destroy his soul, ethvit, remember we took these prepositions, it's conjugated, so this is conjugating to the first person singular. So he who will lose his soul for me, remember ethvehu, with this tav, so the tav is going to be the first person singular. So he who will lose his soul for me, gems. Gems is the form of genie that we talked about. So it means he shall gem find her. So who's the her? The her corresponds to T-ibsiki or Tifibsiki. So it's feminine because this is feminine. So he who will lose his soul for me, he shall find her. So he that loses his life for my sake shall find it. So you can see the translations are a little different. It's kind of nice to know the Coptic and be able to see the the more precise meaning, especially the meaning that not only just like the Greek or something like that, but we get to see the Coptic translations, which shows us what the Bible and the understanding was through our Coptic forefathers' eyes themselves. So it's a very, very unique perspective. And like we talked about before in previous classes, especially in the introduction, oftentimes when there's kind of disputes or claims, people are trying to figure stuff out from like the Greek Bible or something is not making sense, or there's a question about something in the Greek or the Hebrew text. Many times they'll revert back to the Coptic, because it's known among the scholars that the Copts had a very, very, very good understanding of not only the Greek language, but of the scriptures. So they actually would go to the Greek text, the Coptic text, to be able to settle disputes and confusions among scholars who are trying to decipher ancient texts. So again, we're very lucky to be Copts and be studying Coptic, to be able to get a glimpse again into our forefathers' understanding of the Bible. Let's see. So the next sentence, again, this is good because it has a lot of these relative pronouns. Fi et shop immoten. So shop means to receive or accept. So he who receives or accepts you, plural, of shop immoy. He received me. So he who receives you receives me. So pretty straightforward. He that receives you receives me. O fi et shop immoy. So and he who receives me received. Again, it's the past tense here. So he who receives me received. And fi et, again, it's this demonstrative pronoun again. So he who receives me received. He who tawoi means to send. And the iota means me. So he who receives me, he received him who sent me. Fi et af ta'u oi. So you may recognize this word from the deacon's response. Ni et osh maru ta'u in Niran. Ta'u means to send. So you can say like I'm sending a letter to somebody who's a ta'u, or I'm sending something to somebody. But ta'u also means to recite something. So that's why we say, let those who read recite. So think of it as like you're sending out or calling out names. So you're sending them out. So that's why we say, Ni et osh, those who read, maru ta'u, let them call out or send out the names. So that's what we just say it as recite. So ta'u means to send. So he who receives me. Again, there's no tense here. There's no like fiat off shop. No, there's no tense here. So this defaults into the present tense because there's nothing indicating past, present, future. So it defaults into the present tense. So fi et shop. So he who receives me received he who sent me. So he that receives me receives him that sent me. So we're almost done. So I'll finish these last two verses here. We might go a couple minutes over, but I'll try to go a little bit quicker for these. So this is a great one because we've got a lot of these examples of this demonstrative pronouns here. So fi et shop. So he who receives in u prophetis, that's easy. He who receives a prophet, ifran, in the name, ifran, in u prophetis. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet, fhi, he shall take or receive the reward of a prophet. Fi et shop and u ithmi, he who receives a righteous or a just person. Ithmi means, remember we talked about this is the only case that you'll ever see this two articles back to back. So me means truth, justice, righteousness, or correctness. Ethmi means the truth, justice, righteousness, or correctness. So, or a person who is just or righteous or whatever, or correct. So, but we have two articles here. We've got this indefinite and the definite article back to back. This is the only case that I can think of off the top of my head where you ever see two articles back to back, where this word essentially acts like it's not even, doesn't have an article. This essentially acts as if it's just one word without a definite article. Okay, so he who receives a righteous one or a just one in the name of a righteous one or a just one. he shall receive the reward of a righteous or just one. So let's look it over here. He that receives a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. Owo fi ethna etse. Se means to drink, and etse, et comes from tea, to give drink. So this means to give water, to, like, it's like in Arabic, to give water, etse, to give drink. So, and he who gives drink to a y, to one, and naikoji. So one of these little, it doesn't say little what, but it's little ones. So, and he who gives a drink to one of these little ones from a cup, and ma'u, so again, there's something wrong with the font here, but ma'u means water, hoj means cold or cool. So he who gives drink to one of these little ones from a cup of cold water. So, and he who shall give to drink unto one of these little ones of a cup of cold water, ma'u hoj, it's cold water, only in the name of a disciple. Monon efron nomatikis. Amin means so be it, or verily. So verily, tigo em mosnoten. So I say, present tense. What do I say? I say this, direct object. So I'm saying this. This is the thing that's being said. I say her to the indirect object, which is who's receiving it. So I say her to you, but there's no her, because like I said in Coptic, there's no such thing as it, so they say her. So I say her to you, or I say this to you, je, quotation mark, in niftako, in je pevdeke. So your reward shall not be lost. His reward shall not be lost or destroyed. So verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise. So see how it says no wise, because remember I said, we didn't get to these tenses, but this is the negative of the third future that we talked about. So fe means definitely will, and nef means definitely not. So that's why no way. So it says here, he shall in no way lose his reward. And glory be to God for him. So sorry we ran a little bit long, but if anybody has any questions or anything, if you can send them in this last minute or so, we'll give you a few seconds. But otherwise, we'll conclude with a prayer because, sorry again, we did run a couple minutes long this time. But I figured we were so close to ending this gospel reading, we can go ahead and just finish it. So I don't know, Bishra, do you have any questions or anything anybody sent in? Or?
Thank you, Dr. Sidrak. Everyone, just keep checking your online courses, see if there's anything due. If you have any questions, please go ahead and send them forward to Dr. Joseph Sidrak anytime. Keep checking your online for the next classes. Other than that, Dr. Sidrak, please go ahead and end us with a prayer, please.
Okay. And as usual, we'll conclude with a prayer in Coptic. Shenefran Mfiot, Nimibshiri, Nimbeb Nimma Thawab, ونوت ينوت أمين جاي بنيوت تخلني في قوي معرف توفون جاي بكران معرف إين جا تكمة أورو فات هناك معرف شوبي إما فريتي خانت فاه نمهي جنبي كاهي بين أويك انتراستي ميف نانم فو أو كان يتيرون من إيفول إما فريتي هون انتنكو إيفول إني أتا ووننتان إرؤو أوه إمبرنتن أخون إبيرازموس الله نهمين إيفول هابي بتهو فن بخريستوس إيسوس بن شويس جثوك تتيمت أورو نمتي قوم نمبي أو شاءنه انتني إنه تيرو آمين خنفران نمفيوت نمبشيري نمبب نمma ثواب ونوت ينوت آمين. Okay, everybody, thanks again for attending. Again, sorry about last week. I was sick, and you can probably still hear it in my voice. I'm still a little bit hoarse, but But again, I apologize for that. But God willing, we'll see you again next time. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Have a good night.